As Indians, Ramayana and Mahabharata are stories that we grew up listening to about our favorite heroes and their legends. But these stories have always been in the shroud of controversy of whether they actually happened historically or whether they are just imaginative stories. Let's take a look. Now, one of the most important things due to which people tend to disbelieve this is because of the over-imaginative fantastical elements that these stories carry, like being able to change one's size, men having multiple heads, animals talking, people communicating with gods. It does sound like something out of a fantasy fiction. Let's put some clarity on it. There are two main broad categories of the Hindu scriptures which are called Shruti and Smriti. The Shruti refers to the body of most authoritative texts believed to be eternal knowledge authored not by human intellect but the divine. Smritis, on the other hand, are usually attributed to an author, traditionally written down but constantly revised and retold. The Ramayana and Mahabharata are Smritis, which are included in the Itihasa, literally meaning history category. These two epics contain a lot of similar fantastical attributes which we also find in other stories from the Puranas, Vedas and the Upanishads. So why only were these two epics coined as Itihasa, that is history, and not the others? Almost all of the scriptures and texts are written in poetical form. Poetries are always layered with tons of metaphors and allegories, which is the number one reason it should not be taken literally. That's one of the major issues when dealing with ancient scriptures, because ancient historical texts all across the world were written with a lot of poetic flavor. So let's say in these stories, demons didn't actually mean 50 feet dark hairy men with red eyes and fangs, but it just symbolized a man with demonic characteristics like greed, lust, anger, violence, etc. So in Ramayana, when it says Ravana was a demon king with 10 heads, it does not necessarily mean he was a man with actual 10 heads sprouting out of him. It most probably meant he was an intelligent person who had the intellect and brains that 10 men together might have. Now let's take Ramayana and the Vanara army which helped Rama fight against Ravana to get his wife Sita back. The scripture never directly refers to them as monkeys, but a special race of being who look like apes. The word Vanara literally means Vana, that is forest, and Nara, that is human. Humans that dwelled in the forest. These species were dominant in the southern part of India and dominant in modern-day Thailand, Myanmar, Malaysia, Indonesia, etc. Vanaras were not monkeys because monkeys are called Markata, Kapi or Vanakapi in Sanskrit. Scientific and archaeological studies tell us that Homo sapiens neanderthalensis or simply Neanderthals are an extinct species who lived within Eurasia starting from some 230,000 years ago. Though it is accepted that the migration started from Asia to Europe, there seems to be not much evidence of Neanderthals in India. But the reason could be that in ancient Indian culture, the dead are always burned immediately after death, no matter whether they are humans or animals. It's really difficult to find any such remains, or it could also be attributed to a cataclysm like a flood or an earthquake, which could also be the reason of the destruction of the Indus Valley civilization. Valmiki, the writer of the Ramayana, mentions that this species existed all across the world but were dominant in southern India in the capital Kishkinda near Karnataka, whose king was Sugriva. Valmiki states that Vanaras also came from a land where the sun always shines or is always set, which is the polar region. Another metaphor which Ramayana mentions is Ravana's golden Lanka or Soneki Lanka. Soneki Lanka probably meant that it was a most prosperous kingdom, as India was once called Soneki Chidiya, which means the golden bird. And it wasn't a whole kingdom made out of actual gold. There are various other mysteries which cannot be explained but could be analyzed. One such theory is that the ancient people had possession of an advanced technology which nobody has been able to explain. One of the ancient wonders, the Pyramid of Giza, is an example of such. Even today, scientists haven't been able to exactly figure out how it was built. Yes, we have many theories after years of research, but no concrete conclusion. It's theorized that this advanced technology was wiped out by a global flood 12,000 years ago. Recent discoveries have provided some insight into this. We now know that a comet hit the Earth during 10,900 BC, which shattered into fragments and hit the Earth at different points, which is now known as the YDB or Younger Dryas Boundary. Due to this, the ice caps melted. As the ice age was nearly over as well, volcanoes erupted and the atmosphere was filled with clouds of ash and dust, with the sea level rising and causing a global flood. The global flood could also be linked to Noah or Nuh, the prophet who is mentioned in the Abrahamic religions. Interestingly, in the Indian scriptures too, such a similar story exists about Manu and the Matsya Avtara. Another interesting discovery was made in 2008 by a team of Russian archaeologists who found a tooth in Denisova, Russia, whose surface area is 2.5 times the size of a normal human tooth. At first, it was assumed that it was an animal tooth, but after a DNA test, they discovered that it was in fact a human tooth. These ancient scriptures have always mentioned humans that are unusually large in size, like Hanuman from Ramayana or Ghatotkacha, the son of the Pandava Bhima from the Mahabharata. We discovered a whole new human species that until now we did not even know existed. They have termed this species as Denisovans. Another fascinating thing that was found was this bracelet, which is 40,000 years ago, made by the Denisovans, which has a hole in it about 1 millimeter in diameter. Scientists, after careful study, concluded that this hole could not have been made without a fast spinning drill. Now, where would a Denisovan find a fast spinning drill 40,000 years ago? Everything suggests that there was some kind of ancient advanced technology which we are not yet aware of. This opens all possibilities that some of the seemingly supernatural things or creatures mentioned in the scriptures could very possibly have existed. Another factor which tells us why the Ramayana and the Mahabharata could easily be a fact is the example of the Mauryan Emperor Ashoka the Great. The story of Ashoka the Great and many other Indian kings and dynasties are mentioned in the Puranas. Now, scholars have discovered great inconsistencies and variations in the Puranas which lead to the point that the Puranas at least are largely tampered with. Some stories in the Puranas mention Ashoka as an incarnation of Lord Shiva, with stories where Ashoka puts out a forest fire with one blow of his breath and so on. Up until 19th century, Ashoka was considered as just one of the mythical creatures from the scriptures until an English scholar named James Prinsep discovered some important artifacts which had not been found earlier, which confirmed the existence of Ashoka. Some scholars, with the help of the astronomical dates mentioned in the epics Ramayana and Mahabharata, have come to an idea that the Ramayana took place around 4000 to 5000 BCE and the Mahabharata took place around 2000 to 3000 BCE. One such epic in the world which is praised and cherished is the Iliad by Homer, written in the 8th century BCE. The story itself is older than that, possibly hundreds or thousands of years older. It includes all kinds of stories of epic duels and battles and glorious war, which was considered as just another story in ode to heroism. But again, in the 19th century, one archaeologist named Frank Calvert pursued this and met another historian named Charles McLaren, who discovered a gold mine of archaeology at a hilltop named Hisolrik in Turkey, where they uncovered the ruins of 9 cities on the hill, each built on top of the ruins of the last city. This finally confirmed that the city of Troy mentioned in Iliad did actually exist. Excavations by Professor B.B. Lal in Uttar Pradesh's Sanoli and Chandayana and other sites mentioned in the Mahabharata have uncovered a chariot and several other artifacts. Most interestingly, it has uncovered the painted grey ware culture and ochre color pottery or OCP in these sites. The archaeologists say that the OCP is marked with advanced weapons and tools, antenna sword, harpoon celts, dagger and shield, metal copper, and an advanced chariot and advanced pottery tradition including metal pots. Also, it has similarity with Vedic rituals. I believe that an extensive archaeological study like the one done to uncover Troy would certainly bring us solid evidence. But as of now, no such extensive searches have been planned. During 1983 to 1990, the Marine Archaeology Unit of India carried out underwater excavations, which is mentioned as the kingdom of Lord Krishna in the Mahabharata, according to the available archaeological evidence from onshore and offshore excavations, confirms the existence of a city-state with a couple of satellite towns in 1500 BCE. It was finally concluded that this submerged city is indeed the Dwarka as described in the epic. In the text, witnesses of the submergence of Dwarka describe it as follows. The sea, which had been beating against the shores, suddenly broke the boundary that was imposed on it by nature. The sea rushed into the city, coursed through the streets of the beautiful town. The sea covered up everything in the city. I saw the beautiful buildings becoming submerged one by one. In a matter of a few moments, it was all over. The sea had now become as placid as a lake. There was no trace of the city. Dwarka was just a name, just a memory. This description matches exactly to the submergence of the city of Dwarka. Another factor which promotes the exaggeration of the scriptures is the God making out of humans. In almost all ancient and historical scriptures and cultures, men who are enlightened or in touch with the divine, sages, saints, monks, etc., have been given a god-like status. Especially in the Indian culture and Hindu scriptures, enlightened beings like Rama, Krishna, Buddha are considered as incarnation of God. One more metaphorical example that I find from the scriptures is from the Bible, where it says, God said, "Let there be light," and there was. It could easily be a poetic expression of the explanation of the Big Bang, where the universe expanded rapidly, spreading light and matter all across the universe. If you have come this far, do watch the second part of the video, which explains the Mahabharata historicity with much more detail.